Welcome to vibrant Malaysia. Strategically located in the heart of Asia with links to all parts of the world. Headed by a constitutional monarch. Governed by parliamentary democracy, where general elections are held every 5 years. The country enjoys decades of stability with the benefits of a broad-based economy powered by the private sector and a pro-business government. It's always summer in Malaysia, a country blessed with abundant natural resources and more. While rapidly developing, we continue to preserve our land, environment, heritage and values. They are all here in Malaysia, a country of many colors, races and cultures. Selamat datang. Welcome to Malaysia. Malaysia has transformed from a country dependent on agriculture and primary commodities to an export-driven economy, spurred by high technology, knowledge-based and capital-intensive industries toward a high-income nation. Many international corporations have made Malaysia their highly competitive offshore base. To date, more than 5,000 international companies from over 80 countries have established their regional and global operations in Malaysia. Companies in the manufacturing and services sectors continue to expand and diversify their operations. The combination of a stable political environment and a government that is responsive to private sector needs and supports and facilitates business. Malaysia's developed infrastructure has provided the requisite competitiveness to the business community. The Kuala Lumpur International Airports provide excellent facilities. The airports can accommodate up to 70 million passengers. And more than 12 million tons of cargo per year. In addition, 6 other international airports are strategically located to serve the regional needs. And the 7 major ports ensure the efficient movement of cargo as well as facilitate international trade. The improved rail system and the network of expressways ensure easy access to and from airports, seaports and urban centers. The government ensures that energy needs are adequately met, while broadcasting and telecommunications requirements are being served by the latest digital and fiber optics technology. For banking and financial services, local and foreign banks offer comprehensive and competitive packages. $11 million trainable and educated Malaysians support industry and trade, and annually about 250,000 young Malaysians enter the workforce. Many English language-based colleges, universities, technical and vocational institutions ensure the continuous supply of manpower needs. Malaysia's geographical location makes the country a strategic base for exports to the Asia-Pacific markets. Malaysia provides access to not only the ASEAN market, with a population of 600 million, but to a market of more than 3 billion people created by the various trading arrangements with the world's most vibrant nations. Living in Malaysia. But doing business in Malaysia is not all work. The country offers good living in the midst of a clean and green environment. Modern housing, international schools, healthcare of international standards. Add to that the warmth and hospitality of Malaysians. Things to do during leisure. Great food everywhere. Fun places to be. Make Malaysia a home away from home. Selamat datang. Welcome to Malaysia, your profit center in Asia.
Some people are calling this the new normal, but there's nothing normal about it. As the world's businesses begin to reopen, the question is, what can we learn from this? Perhaps today isn't a restart, it's a rethink. A time to take the things that are working and apply them to the new jobs that need to get done. Today, businesses are staying open in a world that feels closed. With the IBM Cloud, retailers can keep systems up as millions of orders move online. Data is being protected against new security risks. So at leading hospitals, private information can stay private, even while doctors are caring for patients from home. Businesses are being more responsive. With the help of scalable solutions on the IBM Cloud, financial advisors can process bank transfers remotely, securely. Today, supply chains are getting more intelligent, helping ship our produce, stock our stores, and fill our tables. Remote work is working smarter with IBM Watson, helping employees stay more productive and making parents even more proud. Customers are getting answers faster. With Watson Assistant, wait times are being cut from hours down to minutes, and companies are managing millions of calls, texts, and chats. Today, we are speeding our research and our recovery with help from all the developers who are answering the call. Today, we are rethinking how business moves forward, how the world moves forward. So let's get to it. Let's put smart to work.
Stemming from our founding pillars in India back in 1868, TCS has been unrelenting in improving the lives of communities through value creation. 66% of the Tata Group equity share capital is held in philanthropic trusts towards education, health, and livelihood. Since then, our insignia for sustainability has been ingrained across all the work we've accomplished. Adopting a sustainable digital-first strategy to propel Malaysia towards IR 4.0. By setting the stage through TCS Thought-Leading Vision, Business 4.0, we've enabled clients to harness the abundance and navigate through the paradigm shift brought by digital disruptions. The intent is to discard traditional thought patterns and drive performance through an intelligent, agile, automated, and cloud-based pathway. we help businesses thrive in the wave of disruption with superior business outcomes.
Certainty for where it's most vital. That's the promise of EcoStruxure Microdata Center from Schneider Electric. The support you need when there's no room for downtime.
Hi everyone, good morning to all of you and thanks for tuning in. It's me again, Myra from Star Media Group's award-winning Rage Investigative Journalism team. We hope you have enjoyed the opening session yesterday. And if today's your first session, welcome to Star Media Group CXO 2020. I'm your host for this 4-day live virtual conference. And we hope that you, your family, and friends continue to stay well, innovative, and disruptive as we progress into the next normal. For all of you who are currently watching this program on WebEx, Facebook, and YouTube, thank you for joining us. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here comes one of my most favorite parts of the program, the announcement of the special prize draw winners of yesterday's session. Yes, you heard it right. For those of you who have just joined us, all you need to do is to join us here on WebEx, stay with us till the end of the program each day, and you will stand a chance to win these exciting prizes. Now, let's see who the winners of yesterday's session is. The first is Skull Candy Wireless Headphones to our friend from Indonesia, Setiawan Guntarto. And the Google Home Mini goes to Chan Sokme. The Sony Portable Bluetooth speakers goes to Stephen Ding, and the Razer Hammerhead Wireless Earbuds goes to Fight Pati. Now, I know that all of us can't hear each other applause, but let's just, for the sake, just know that we are happy. I am at least. Congratulations to all the winners. Our events crew will be contacting you separately at the end of CXO 2020 on this Friday afternoon to your registered email or mobile number for the arrangement. Now, are you guys as excited to kickstart today's program? According to IDC, by 2022, digital economy will go mainstream with at least 50% of APAC GDP coming from digital products and services. IDC will be sharing with us what should be on the CEO agenda in building Malaysia's future enterprise in support of the digital economy. After that, there will be a fireside chat between our Terabyte partner AVM Cloud and Mydin. At the end of today's session, there will be a panel of industry-leading technology and digital leaders who will be sharing success stories and challenges in their journey of engineering an X factor for their businesses. To learn more about the conference program and our speaker's profile, you may scan the QR code on the top right of your screen or visit bit.ly/StarCXO2020. That is bit.ly/StarCXO2020. All right, just a few housekeeping matters before we kick off as usual. First, please be patient if you're experiencing any technical glitches. This is a live online event and everyone dials in from different internet bandwidths and devices. For WebEx participants, your microphone and video cam are turned off by default, but you can chat with our events crew directly if you need any assistance or email us at events@thestar.com.my. And if you have any questions for our speakers, please post it up in the chat box below or in the comment section below. Lastly, and most importantly, please remember to engage, learn, and enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you our Day 2 keynote speaker. As the Managing Director for IDC ASEAN, Sudev directs the overall operations of the ASEAN country offices and works alongside local and global organizations, C-level executives in their aspirations in developing robust plans and strategies in the emerging countries. Sudev is also a frequent speaker at industry events across Southeast Asia on a wide range of topics. In this keynote, Sudev will share with us insight on how the shift in IT spending prioritization is a natural progression and how keeping your house in order is the hallmark of what will help your organization emerge resilient post-pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker, Sudev Banga.
Right. So thank you, Myra. Appreciate the introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you. And it's always exciting to do presentations in this platform. And a lot of us now actually get to feel how a host or a presenter actually feels within a studio. We're so used to interacting to everyone on a face-to-face basis. I do miss interacting with all of you, but it is exciting that we're still able to get out some messaging and some content during this period. And I'm sure you're going overload as well with the amount of content on the internet around digital transformation, as well as how you should be reacting to the pandemic. But today, I truly hope that some of the takeaways you get from my presentation will be around some strategies you should be putting in place over the next 3 to 6 months in the near term, a little bit more in the near term rather than the long term, because I won't lie about it. If somebody is talking to you about 24 months down the line, it's probably a picture that not many of us actually know at this point in time. It's not something that we are able to note. It's not something that a lot of analysts are able to forecast at this point in time. But what we've been doing in IDC, we've been trending and looking at the market for the past, every 2 weeks, in fact. We started to get out there. We started to take a pulse of the market and try to understand what technology buyers such as yourselves have been reacting to the market. And today I hope to share some of those trends and, of course, very key strategies of which you can take away and utilize within your organization. And most importantly, I guess one point before I get into the presentation is to say everybody is looking for stability. There's a little analogy in music where a lot of people, whether they play the guitar, whether they play piano, whether they play classical music, I love to give this analogy, is around resolution. And resolution is about bringing a lyrical note to conclusion in a point of stability. And that is what we see a lot of organizations at this point in time are looking for. So we start with the journey. And the journey to recovery, as we see at this point in time, has essentially started off from April-May period that we've seen in Malaysia, in Southeast Asia, as well as in Malaysia. And this recovery process is something of a work in progress for a lot of organizations in Malaysia at this point in time. And I guess what is important for us to note, in IDC, again, what we've been doing is that we've been taking a pulse of the market every couple of weeks. And the information you're staring at is as of mid-July. We will be getting our end July data very soon. But I wanted to start with a little bit of a picture around the COVID-19 technology index of which we have. Now, the COVID-19 technology index takes a pulse of organizations across continents, across different areas, whether it's United States, Europe, USA, Asia Pacific, as well as worldwide, to see the confidence technology buyers have in spending all over again. If you look at this chart and you can see a little bit of the trend from April all across to mid-July, you saw a little bit of an uptick in May because of the recovery of the pandemic cases that we saw across in China, Korea, and Japan. Singapore as well during that period was recovering very well before a second wave hit. Malaysia at this point in time, as you know, we've been keeping things very stable. And Southeast Asia in general, with the exception of Indonesia and the Philippines, have been very stable in terms of the number of infection cases or the rate of infections. And because of that, that has brought in a little bit more confidence from the tech buyer side in wanting to start to reinvest. Now, I think what is really important here around reinvestment is that digital transformation discussions have not gone away. I think that's a very important thing to note. Digital transformation, in fact, has accelerated. From our data, from the discussions we've had with you, with the technology buyers, with everyone who's been impacted by this pandemic, we understand right now that digital transformation initiatives have to be accelerated because many organizations were caught out somewhere in the March-April period. And a lot of review around business continuity, around resiliency, around cost optimization have now become the top of mind. But let's revisit a little bit in terms of what the ASEAN CEO priorities have been over the past few months running up to the pandemic. Now, this is in no particular order. However, these four elements around critical infrastructure, ensuring there's infrastructure modernization, ensuring that your platform has stability, elasticity, as well as able to support a lot of the new technologies on top of it, that has been a very important key point, especially driving towards business goals. And when it comes to your customers, re-engaging customers have always been a difficulty for many organizations over the past 1 to 2 years, especially with the transition these customers have been going through in order to adopt or to consume your services. So the acquisition or addressing new customer requirements have been a top CEO priority as well. Capabilities, keeping up with the new technologies coming in, keeping up with the new trends coming in. It's important for organizations to be able to refresh their capabilities, to retrain, to reskill, to acquire new capabilities, to support the organization into the future, as well as an industry ecosystem. Looking at the vertical or the sector that you're in, understanding your key partners, your supply chain, understanding how that has changed, and trying to define your role within this so-called digital economy is very, very pertinent at this point. So these have been the ASEAN CEO priorities. And at this point in time, these priorities have not changed, they just might have reshuffled. And when we talk about the data that we have received in May, you talk about technology-led priorities for 2020 and 2021, we're seeing an emergence of data-related solutions and technologies coming to the fore. There's a lot of discussion around organizations wanting to be a so-called future enterprise at this point in time. But what does that truly take? What does a future enterprise truly entail? Now, from our definition, where we stare at a future enterprise, is an organization who's able to take steps and make decisions based off intelligent data. How do you get that intelligent data? The process behind it and the technology and the solutions to derive this intelligent data is going to be extremely important. So we've seen this very quickly move up the ranks in terms of wanting to be a future enterprise, a data-driven organization, and ultimately to culminate this around the infrastructure that is going to drive towards the business goals. Now, the future enterprise is aspirational. At this point in time, we do not anticipate or do not feel that many organizations are at that point at this point in time. It's a little bit of a journey. It's a continuous journey. And as we move forward and we start looking at the different technologies that are being adopted, the key point here is to be very focused on the technology investments or the technology implementation or digital transformation project initiatives that are going to help drive towards those business goals. I cannot say that often enough around business goals. Over the past couple of years, you've seen KPIs come up which are not in sync with technology development or technology deployment within the organization. So as CEO priorities continue to be around business, they have started to look towards technology to enable them so that they can move towards what is called a future enterprise. Now, let me localize this a little bit across to Malaysian organizations. Now, if you look at C-level priorities, the top three priorities pre-COVID and post-COVID, we've seen a little bit of a shift in terms of what they're looking for. And if you remember the two terms I brought up just now around resiliency and cost optimization, those are the two areas of keen focus of Malaysian organizations right now. If you're a Malaysian enterprise tuning in right now and you're looking at this slide going, that's exactly what I'm doing, you are not wrong and you are not alone. And most importantly, you are not alone. And if you see towards the other end of the other side of the slide, when you talk about cloud services, analytics, AI, IoT, cybersecurity, even robotics or automation, I think the important point to note, while we see optimism from Malaysian enterprises wanting to move towards these services, move towards these technology implementation, and the reinvestment going to be a little bit more targeted, the building of their future-proof business, as well as the assessment of the technology that's going to help you, is a very, very critical point for you. Let me elaborate. Now, if you were to walk in tomorrow and have discussions with your board or those who will fund your technology projects, the important point to note around here is that you cannot just pick and choose a technology that you think is going to help you. Now, we've seen very siloed implementation of technology that unfortunately hinders the process of digital transformation rather than help it. So when you holistically look at your technology implementation or digital transformation, it's very critical for you to reassess your organization at this point in time. You need to take stock. If you're unable to take stock at this point in time, we see a trend from a global basis down to a regional basis where change consulting or business consulting is very critical at this point for organizations who are pivoting, especially in view of the pandemic at this point in time. So if you go in tomorrow and decide IoT is the poster child, one of the poster childs of technology, poster childs of saving organizations from the pandemic, unfortunately that isn't the case. Now, the culmination of these as a solution and underpinning all of these with your business values and your business goals is going to be extremely important over the next 3 to 6 months. Therefore, helping you to retarget and refocus a lot of your investments towards the fourth quarter of the year as well as the first quarter of 2021. Now, these are some of the discussions that we've had, and if you look across the spectrum, these are actual quotes that we've received from CIOs across ASEAN as well as Malaysia. And if you're sitting right there and saying, hey, that's exactly something that I've said before, that's because your colleagues are saying the same thing. If you look towards the left, when the crisis hit, there was a bit of a slowdown. Everybody was saying we need to be in sync with our CEO. We need to manage our infrastructure to support our employees out into a virtual environment. How do we do that? If you look to the extreme other side, towards the right, you're going to see that business resiliency, cost optimization, while that is top of mind, I have to be able to then look at the processes within my organization, have my house in order for me to actually drive towards that. So that review of it is going to be extremely critical. Now in Malaysia, majority of the organizations we have spoken to, they're square in the middle. The two quotes that you see in the middle right there. Business has to re-begin. It has to restart. We have no choice around it. We need to be safe. We have to be prepared for what is called the new normal or the next normal. I know that's a term that's come up very often right now, but unfortunately it's going to be said quite a bit. But the so-called new normal or the next normal in terms of how businesses are going to operate in these times. How do we then prioritize technologies? How are we able to choose things, especially if organizations are re-looking their structure? And there might be layoffs, there might be furloughs, there might be organizations who are trying to cut costs in a more traditional way. How do we prioritize the business? So in the next section of my slide deck, which you will see across, will be some of the strategies for you to consider in moving ahead with your organization's plans in the coming future. So start with the end in mind. I think what's really critical, if you look towards the journey, if you look across the spectrum from business continuity all the way to being a future enterprise, if you take a stare at that and you see how this has gone across in terms of the curve, you can see the ultimate goal again of a future enterprise is an information-enabled organization. It's an organization which is data-driven. It's an organization based on the ideals of utilizing analytics to succeed. Now, if you look towards cost optimization and business resiliency, and that's where we see majority of Malaysian organizations right now, we see cloud solutions, we see tools which are going to help in terms of forecasting and optimization, solutions that are perhaps going to help you from a certain point of view to review internally to see, hey, have I been missing something? Can I cost save 10% or 20% somewhere else? So while you are in this mode right now, and executing on this mode around cost optimization and business resiliency, it is very critical now to think about the 6 months ahead to see where targeted investments potentially can be and what these targeted investments have to actually materialize in order for your business to continue. So this brings us to the point about how you should reintegrate with your partners. Now, your partners being your partner ecosystem, whether it's a supply chain, whether it's the organizations you're used to working to within your sector, but most importantly, the service providers that you work with, the vendors, the technology providers that you work with. Now, bringing this to a fore, again, word of the year for me is business resiliency. Now, we hear things around pandemic being a very, one of the most searched words across in Google. We hear again new normal or next normal being one of the most searched words as well on search engines. But for me, it's been business resiliency. And business resiliency has to be broken down into pillars for you in order for you to define that out very clearly for your organization to practice. Now, it's very easy for us to go in and say that we need to be a resilient business. But what does that truly entail? What does that truly mean? Now, breaking this out for you, I hope you get a little bit of a picture. Now, analysis, the ability to synthesize information, looking at the information within your organization and outside, then being able to react to it is very, very critical. So how is your infrastructure at this moment in time able to help pull that through and to help you to analyze whatever is out there for your business to react? So you can see the technology focus on the slide over there, whether it's self-service analytics, whether it's remote learning, whether it's crisis analytics, risk analytics. These are some areas for you to think about. Now, adaptability, the ability to learn. What can we learn from this? What can we learn from the data that we have? What are the relationships between the information that we've gathered based on what we know and how we usually react to a situation, and how can we change that reaction? And this cuts across anything from internal business focus, your operations, and all the way out also towards your customer and re-engaging with your customer. When you talk to your customer, they're going to have a very different reaction. Now, I saw a really good quote and a very good data around the manner of which you react to the pandemic is how your customers are going to react to you. It's how they are going to see you. If you react in a very confident manner, they will be more confident in dealing with you and working with you. So in terms of the ability to learn, ability to re-engage, that is a critical element. And finally, around agility. Again, talking about infrastructure which is agile, scalable, stable, and able to then provide the digital services out to your organization, internal stakeholders or internal employees, as well as then towards your customers, this is an element for you to think about. But again, this is something very easy to speak about. When you walk in, you talk about business resiliency, it's very, very easy to speak about that. So this is where we come in with the term, you need to make sure your house is in order. If you want to deliver out reliable digital services and experiences, if you want to ensure that the experience that your organization internally and your customers externally are feeling, it is very critical for you to revise and review your platform to see whether it can be enabled by these technology solutions. So whether it's now starting to look towards a shift towards cloud-based platforms around business support functions. And going back to that note, again, when the pandemic struck, when we went out and we started to talk to a lot of these organizations, we realized very simplistic business support functions there was an inability to execute on these very simplistic business support functions. Procurement, for example, administration, legal. they were financed to a certain extent. They were unable to do this because a lot of organizations, unfortunately, did not have that platform for them to be able to continue their business immediately when a lockdown is announced just 2 days before you are actually supposed to lock down. So how do you react to this? We also saw organizations who are unable to support their employees outside because they did not have company provision devices, and those employees were unable to hook up to secure networks to be able to access company or organization-related resources, and therefore that became a problem. Now, automation, secure infrastructure is going to be extremely critical for you, as well as embracing smart things. Now, it's a really good time for you to review your organization from the ground up to say that, listen, what can we automate? What can we ensure that we can do in order for us to continue business if we hit a wave 2 or a wave 3? Is my business going to be prepared to actually stave off such a wave? Am I going to be able to continue? So getting your house in order right now, looking at your infrastructure, is an extremely critical point. And the CIOs of the day of what we see right now, especially for the CIOs who have actually tuned in at this moment, it's important for you to be self-motivated to want to do this. Now, our prediction around this is that, and it's not to say that CIOs at the moment are not self-motivated in terms of wanting to take the first step or to take the initiative to want to deploy digital transformation projects or initiatives within the organization. But that empowerment coming from the CEO should help CIOs or IT heads or functional VPs of around technology to be able to then take the step forward to say, we have taken a review of the organization, and I think this is what's going to be really important for us to achieve the business goals that you want, Mr. CEO or Board of Directors. So that proactive approach, driving change, being able to build resiliency, being able to build the skill sets, the capabilities, and be able to deliver things in real time. This is going to, these are the elements that's going to help and aid an organization tomorrow. And building partner networks to fill in gaps in skills and competencies. Do know that you don't always have to acquire all the skill sets. I mean, you don't have to train the skill sets yourself. You don't have to hire in. It's very important for you to look at the partner ecosystem that you have and see how you can leverage off that to ensure that you are able to then operate without heightening costs, overly heightening costs within your organization. So these are the 4 steps that we feel is important to take. Now, these are not in linear format, and it's important for you to take stock of them right now. First of all, around getting your house in order, an autonomous elastic infrastructure, staring at your infrastructure and making sure it can scale with the new technologies that can be that you would like to implement at this point in time for your business goals. Trust, building a credible network of partners, whether it's from a supply side or whether it's from a technology service provider point of view, is going to be very important for you to build that trusted network so you can leverage off these expertise in the future. Resourcing, creatively managing your resources. Again, upskilling, reskilling the resources you have and borrowing in the resources that you don't have rather than trying to hunt and search for them all the time. And of course, then re-evaluating your position within the ecosystem of your industry. The industries are evolving. The line between industries are extremely blurred at this point in time. Telcos can actually be finance companies become insurance companies, etc. There's so many of iterations of that. But the impact around the ecosystem, the evolution of the industries is important to take stock of where you are right now and see how you can evolve with that as well post-pandemic. So as we move towards the next 6 months, I think it's really critical for organizations to be able to reintegrate with their partners and consider a form of change consulting or business consulting as well. Now, business consulting for me has been something which is, I have truly found personally when I've had discussions with CEOs or CIOs and around change consulting as well, I have truly found it to be extremely beneficial for a lot of organizations when it's come to the point of them trying to plan, especially a short-term manner of how they should react to a crisis. I've seen a lot of use cases or case studies that have popped up where with this change consulting or even business consulting, the suite of solutions to help business goals have resonated really well with the KPIs of the business side of the organization. So if you're moving towards business resiliency, if you need to look at a suite of solutions or technology solutions which are going to help your organization, I would recommend that a step forward for you to reintegrate with your partners is to talk to them around an element of business consulting. Ask them for their advice. Asking the right questions is going to be extremely key at this point in time, because we do understand cost is a consideration. Our data across the line shows that cost is truly a consideration, and that has been noted. As cost is a consideration, you almost have to get this correct at a go, at one time. It's almost a one-time thing. But moving away from the dreaded word ROI, which is monetary value, I think what's going to be critical for a lot of organizations is to look at the different value outside of monetary return of a digital transformation initiative, of a now so-called post-pandemic targeted investment initiative. That is going to be extremely critical when it comes to your technology spending. So ask the right questions, continue your investments to close the gaps in your digital transformation that you had before, build your trusted partner network, and ultimately then, hopefully this will be able to drive you towards your goals of staving off the economic impact that your organization has had over the past 6 months due to the pandemic. So with that, I thank you very much for your time. I appreciate viewing. There's probably some questions going on. I'm going to hang around to answer a few questions before I go off. But I wish you all the best in the future for those who are not asking questions. But I'll turn it to the question time right now.
Hi, hello.
Hello.
So much for that amazing blueprint of how you make a decision for your CEO during
Yes, ma'am.
We do have, I think, 3 questions. And the first one is a question that I have. I think you have a lot of experience when it comes to ASEAN companies and CEOs. During this trying time, what is something that possibly Malaysian CEOs could learn from the ASEAN ecosystem to help brace themselves through this crisis? One particular thing that you think we should focus on?
Sure. I think very quickly, how you react to the pandemic again, or how you react to the situation is going to be very critical, and it's going to be very important. I saw this about 5 years ago when organizations across Southeast Asia were almost blindly deploying different forms of technology and solutions within the organization, and we saw copycats occurring out in, whether it's in Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, or Philippines, or whichever. And organizations tend to follow a trend. And I think it's very critical at this point in time for CEOs not to, interact too much with, not to say not interact, but for them not to copy a solution that perhaps worked for an organization. It may not necessarily work for their organization. It's going to be very important for them to, again, take stock of their focus and their business goals in order to then implement the right solutions for themselves. So try not to be, unfortunately, I don't have a better word, but the copycat trend was very prominent over the past 5 years. Oh, somebody did AI, somebody did robotics, therefore I'm going to go into it. It does not necessarily work that way.
Thank you. You mentioned that earlier as well. So I guess they are good solutions, but they might not be necessarily good solutions to your problems as a business. Thank you. So we have 2 more questions. First one is from Tasha. And the question is, what technology apart from cloud technology can an organization use to build for business resiliency?
It's a great question. Thank you, Tasha. So, cloud technology is essentially what we call very foundational technology for organizations to depend upon when it comes to so-called resiliency. Now, again, defining business resiliency, you're going to look at the different areas of moving towards a data-driven organization or an information-based organization to react to certain, to the market. And cloud technologies at this point in time is something of which our cloud platforms at this point in time, when it goes down to business continuity, whether it goes down to your storage, compute, I think that is going to be a fundamental point for your organization to be able to react to. But when we talk about business resiliency, let's go back to the business support functions. Now, a lot of organizations, again, were unable to get simplistic procurement done. They were unable to get simplistic legal documents done as well. I remember when the pandemic hit in late March and the lockdown happened, we were dealing with a few customers who had to send contracts all around to get a wet signature. So we literally had to send it to different home addresses, even out of state, to get a wet signature to send it back. And all this can actually be built and supported by systems that can actually aid towards business resiliency. So then you don't lose time to market. So whether it's staring at very simplistic ERP systems for your organization, looking towards collaboration tools, these are the technology. And again, a lot, whether it's based on cloud, whether it's based in your data center, obviously for us, we feel a more elastic environment, especially towards cloud technology, is going to be a very important key KPI for the IT department to drive and implement and infuse within the business in the coming 6 months.
Thank you for that answer. I think a lot of the times what we hear here is like AI technology, but to use the simple example of signatures during the pandemic for ongoing partnerships, I think that's powerful. Sometimes it's the simple things that can help you progress or your business progress and be more efficient.
Correct.
Okay, so we have one more question. It's from Sabrina. Big companies seem to prefer global brands instead of smaller local players. How do local tech companies overcome this stigma? Very good question.
I like this question a lot. I'm just wondering whether it's the Sabrina I know who would ask this. Not sure where she's from, but hello, Sabrina. So this stigma is very much born from, well, stigma perhaps is a strong word, but it is born from the point of view that in the development of a lot of local SIs in Malaysia, that wide-scale partnership towards global brands have always been extremely prominent. Now, I would certainly say at this point in time, this is not a knock on any local vendor or local tech company at this point in time. But a lot of the technologies were pioneered outside before they were brought in. Where local companies or local technology companies truly stand out is the differentiator around whether you call it a cultural affinity, as well as in terms of how a local provider can feed into very specific industries that global brands cannot. And therefore, then the global brands will want to partner with you to get into those opportunities as well. So I don't have the silver bullet answer for you right now or a golden ticket, unfortunately, but that preference it is born out of the idea or the fact that a lot of the new technologies come from outside and local providers tend to take that as part of their partners to deliver that out. But I do feel the local providers have that huge opportunity to play into very niche areas of which global brands cannot. And in fact, then the narrative will be a little bit more flipped, where the global brands will want to partner with you to get into very specific opportunities in Malaysia.
Thank you so much. So find your niche area and then monetize it. So thank you so much for the amazing speech as well as really, really good questions from the audience. I will be joining you later in the main area, but before that, I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I'll see you guys later.
You good?
Thank you once again, Sudev. It is a great honor to have listened to your speech and to have learned a lot. So throughout these 4 days, you're going to hear a lot of discussions about how to pivot, what kind of technology to use. But what is really, really good about Sudev's speech is that now you have a good blueprint and understanding of how to make the decisions for your business. So that was really, really amazing. We have our next session coming up soon, and that's a fireside chat. Our chat moderator, Kenny Lim, is the director and co-founder of Integrated Global Solutions and Chief Technology Officer of AVM Cloud. He has been a technology entrepreneur in virtualization and cloud services industry in Malaysia since 2003. Kenny's special guest, Malik Murad Ali, is the IT director for Mydin. He was responsible for setting up Mydin's IT department, which started off with only 2 people and now has grown to close to 80 people. From the IT division, Malik shifted his role to set up the Mydin online division at the end of 2016. From a humble start, he and his team have grown the e-commerce channel to more than 250% in just 20 months. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Kenny Lim and Malik Murad Ali.
Hey, hi. This is Kenny from AVM Cloud. Welcome for today's event that we're going to take our customers. Malik is the IT director from Mydin, and it's a Malaysia hypermart business. So I'd like to introduce that Malik has been with us for like past 8 years for his e-commerce that is first on board in AVM Cloud. So we remember that when we've been through that, what is this e-commerce around, and we just thought that, hey, we are the cloud provider. You need a cloud services to provide the mass for the e-commerce, and that's where we started that, right? So I'd like to set the stage today. We'll just talk through the experience, right? And then and maybe we'll just talk on the MCO things.
Sure. Again, thank you for having me. I mean, besides being your customer, let me just tell you a little bit of history about myself. I've joined Mydin in 2001. At that point, Mydin, we had about 7 stores. I think about 200 or 300 employees. And each store has its own point of sales. So when I was hired, I was asked to do the IT department for Mydin. So we started there, you know. So when people ask, where did your digital transformation started? I guess it started almost 20 years back, you know, because it's digital transformation or adopting technology. It's not about, you know, now, just because it's a fancy word. But it's something that most organizations have been going through for the last, you know, as long as they've been using computers and they're putting their process into a technology, right? And we started off 20 years ago. We've centralized, you know. And as you mentioned, 8 years back, we started to go on e-commerce.
Yeah, our relationship is back longer than that. I remember I see you in USJ, right? That's where your hypermart starts. Right.
Yeah, USJ was our first hypermarket in Malaysia. Right. Again, being a Malaysian-born retail, USJ was our first hypermarket, and we were very nervous. I was personally very nervous. In fact, during the first soft launch, we had a lot of problems. You know,
those were the days.
Those were the days. But I'm glad you brought up about the cloud e-commerce. So when I first started off with e-commerce, Mydin, right, we looked at a lot of public clouds, and we decided to go with a local cloud. Why? I guess it's probably because I know the fella lah, easy, you know, we can talk, you know, and they made a very complicated process very easy, you know, and I did not want to put an e-commerce on my service, you know, so that's the key thing. I just put it on cloud, right? Doesn't have to be the cloud, it can be a cloud. Right?
That's AVM Cloud.
AVM Cloud.
Yeah, so that journey really is take us through, right? We learned together with Malik, and we actually learn how this e-commerce progress along with Mydin's requirement. So that transformation journey really takes our experience together, right? On that. Do you want to share a little bit on why, in specific, right, what VMware clouds that is where AVM Cloud based on, right, to take you through, right? I know you guys also, you are on the VMware platform.
So a lot of people that know me would say that Malik doesn't like cloud, which is very true. I find cloud to be very expensive, right? So I have my own private VMware cloud, which I'm running in my own data center. But that is good for my own internal cases, our architecture servers, our small applications we can run, we can manage. But once we start going something on scale, e-commerce, for example, right? That kind of performance, scalability, we need to put on a public cloud, right? Now, when going to public cloud, I mean, I had a look at AWS, I had a look at Azure. I hope I can mention those names. I look at some of the more popular public clouds. Challenge is complicated. It is very difficult. And to be honest, CIOs have a lot of, I mean, we are very busy, you see. We got 1,000 other things to worry about, right? So we want something which is a bit more, I would say, easy to understand, easy to work with, you know. And having a partner, especially a local partner, kind of bridges that gap, you know. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I selected AVN at that point.
I remember those days, we started really, AVM Cloud started as an IaaS offering, right? Build a server, right? Providing a firewall, remove the racks. This is actually where the cloud really started 8 years back. Over the years, right, when the cloud demands getting more sophisticated, right? There are more managed services, there are more service databases, PaaS offering, the SaaS offerings, right? Even integrating this to the analytic and the AI, it becomes a full-fledged cloud services offerings, which, of course, we're also introducing this to you, right? And hopefully you'll be subscribing it, right? So that really is taking our experience and as a local service provider, a cloud service provider, we are proud that Mydin is going through the journey with us, right? So many years, right? So we also want to talk a little bit on the business, that the journey of the customers that have gone through digitizing their e-commerce platform, right? So what are the things that really impact you during the MCO, right? Wouldn't you have an e-commerce platform, you know, or versus what you have already on our cloud today, right? Can you take us through your experience?
Okay. A lot of people would say that, hey, because you have an e-commerce channel, you would have been better off, right? But to be honest, that did not happen. We had a lot of challenges. Just because people couldn't go to stores, there was a high demand, a sudden high demand for e-commerce, right? We hit, I think, 10 times more than our normal volume, actually 10 times more than our peak volume. And because of MCO, we couldn't throw people at the problem. You know, there was no good enough process that could scale, right? Although business was coming in, I think we failed in delivering. You know, yes, we had, but we could have done a much better job. You know, and I don't think it's a Mydin only problem. It was a problem that a lot of other Malaysian retail that practices e-commerce also experience. In fact, what we've seen is that we've suddenly had a lot of new competitors, right? Farmers who would never go and sell on e-commerce suddenly are selling products or produced through WhatsApp.
Unprecedented.
Unprecedented, you know. So everybody has suddenly become very digital. And in fact, I think as an industry, we were looking at 3 to 5 years for people to adopt very highly on e-commerce. But what happened, literally within a week, many people learned how to buy online. They literally learned, you know. So when you learn something, chances are you will go and use it again, right? So that's exactly what happened, right? So people are more buying online now, right? Although MCO is over, people are going back to stores. Sales of e-commerce platform has dropped. You know, it's not as high as it was during the MCO period, but it's still higher than before MCO period, right? So a lot of people are buying online. Not everybody is buying online. You know, people are still going to the stores, but those who have a digital, I would say, a digital strategy would survive better. And you know, if this happens again, we can do better.
Yeah, it did actually resonate that I totally agree that the digital strategies for any CIO today that is putting in place is gonna go way ahead, right? It's gonna go ahead and it's not gonna move back, right? Well, I just saw articles that was posted on LinkedIn, right? Given the digital transformation journey, choose 3 of them. Which are the prime mover? CEO, CIO, or COVID-19? Because the COVID-19 actually pushed this digital transformation, accelerated it.
Oh yeah,
right?
definitely. Yeah.
So just looking back our business side, who our cloud customers that's on board with us, or the one that is going to be on board, we can see a clear distinctions. Customer that is actually on board already, like Maidin, right? That spike of the business, whether you can take the load, right? We talk about that during MCO, right? And how to support you on the spike, because this is public cloud, right? And that's where actually we can take a lot more loading as versus a very traditional way, right? But those customers that start their computing is on premises and they wasn't able to respond fast, right? We have been talking about to some of the smaller customers, right? Not retail specifically, but the PCs, they can't even process their payroll simply because their HR is not in the cloud. And so things like this are no accessibility, right? So I think the cloud really depends on the IT strategies, the digitization strategies that you put in place. It actually helps you on accelerating that.
Yeah. I have to add something there. You see, when you mentioned cloud, in a way, in a traditional sense, we also call it centralization, right? So we have been practicing a central system for the last 20 years. So we have one ERP, we have one architecture service, we have one HR software that does everything, and everybody accesses it. In fact, we have close to over 2,000 virtual desktops that we deploy centrally, right? Some of these strategies that we've deployed over time, I guess we were very lucky, because when MCO hit and we suddenly had 300 people working, from home, we were able to support it because virtual desktop, be it here, be it there, be it in China, they can access it, and that's what we enabled, and that really helped.
Those are the early investment that you put in place, right?
Yeah, it finally paid off, surprisingly. Yeah, my boss always asks, when is this going to pay off? So finally paid off.
Speaking of that, VDI services, we put that gone live before the MCO days, right? And that is actually one of the services that highly subscribed by the subscriber, right? And we improved that after MCO, right? So this is actually one of the fastest pickup business, right, in our cloud as well, right? I totally agree that VDI is never a ROI things, but finally
it's an expensive solution to have.
Customers sees that COVID-19 is finally helping this ROI to pay off. And I just told you, right?
Correct.
This our concurrent access licensing will helps you to even reduce the cost, right?
So during MCO, right, when MCO first hit us, right, a lot of people were saying, hey, we have to spend a lot of money, we have to do a lot of things, buy people desktops and everything to enable people to work from home. But in our case, again, because of virtual desktop, because people have desktops at their home, right, and we don't mind just taking out a desktop and please bring it back home, right, the cost to implement remote access to the application, it cost us exactly zero.
Wow.
Right, zero. We did not spend anything more than what we already have been spending to prepare for this kind of, in a way, a disaster, right? So suddenly people can't work in the office. So we didn't spend any more money, right? Yep. We utilized what we had because of the way the architecture was designed, centralized, cloud-based, then we were very quick to deploy. 300 people work from home, no problem, momentai. Right. The only problem is as long as they got internet access at home.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
And Malaysia lah. Some got, some don't have. Normal.
Yeah, this is exactly the digital transformation we are talking about. How what your earlier investments on the cloud pay off. So, how do you see this cloud adoptions moving forward? Would there be even more?
I guess one of the lessons, one of the lessons of MCO is that cloud is here to stay. Cloud has a role to play, right? In terms of making sure we're still connected, giving us the service, and most importantly, make sure they can entertain us, lah. With Netflix and Amazon Prime and all that, because otherwise we'll be very bored. Everything comes through cloud service. So cloud has a role to play. And for businesses like us, we have to look at cloud in terms of how do we make sure that we are more resilient. Until vaccines are available, we do not know when's the next cycle will hit. And we need to be prepared, right? We need to be prepared in terms of our application delivery. We need to be prepared in terms of a sudden rush to everybody wants to buy digitally, We were not as prepared in the beginning, but when it comes again, we have to be so much more prepared, And I think that's what's going to happen, right? Cloud is here to stay. Cloud is going to grow, but cloud is not the end-all solution to all. I still have to retain my on-prem also.
Well, I'm not encouraging you for everything to be on the public cloud, right? There is always a on-premises hybrid cloud services.
Hybrid. That's the right word.
That is actually another story that it's going to be very interesting because everybody is going to talk about this hybrid cloud service offering, right? So it's going to be seamless, right? A multi-cloud is here as well that is going to be consuming all kind of cloud services, whether it's on-premises or partially in the public cloud. Right?
True, totally agree. I'm looking at hybrid as a strategy. I'm looking at multi-cloud as a strategy, because to be honest, you cannot put all your eggs on one basket, so you die. Right? It's better to work with multi-cloud, utilize the best cost strategy.
This is always AVM Cloud there to hear.
Low cost strategy here.
Well, we are price competitive simply because we are a Malaysian-based cloud service provider,
true.
right? We can go to your office, right? We can talk to you. We can work the things out,
Correct.
right? That's actually our advantage.
You know what? That's exactly what we relied upon during the MCO. When we were hit with MCO, when we were hit with the e-commerce spike, one thing this fella did was make sure that, Malik, don't worry, your servers are already upgraded, you have super SSDs running, your e-commerce will be okay. So the only thing I didn't have to worry about was the architecture. E-commerce was running. My only problem was I didn't have enough people to pick the goods. That's another problem. But thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You are always...
Sorry, physically distant. Thank you.
Well, just think about that. What if the next wave hits? Would you be doing a better job now in preparations? Like you just mentioned that?
Yeah, definitely. Because of the first experience, now we know better. In fact, I have a new system going live tomorrow so that we can do better picking, right? So previously when orders used to come, we used to be more manual in terms of our picking process. But as of tomorrow, it will be fully digitized. It will be fully system driven, right? With locationing and whatnot. So that system is going live tomorrow. And that is to prepare for, hey, if it happens again, when I have a sudden spike, can I handle 5,000, 6,000 orders in a day, 10,000 orders in a day? Hell yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah, this is actually the full digitization's journey, right? Involve cloud, involve IoT, involve all these logistics.
All the toys that's there.
Right. So, speaking of that, actually, our experience also with SME, right? We also see that a lot of small business owners is also thinking about this strategy of how a cloud provider like AVM is able to help them to onboard their business to cloud, right? They may not have a sophisticated IT system, but that few services that is a must for them to continue to run their business, right? Maybe their ERP, maybe their accounting package, or their HR, right? That is very easy job for us to understand, to onboard them to a cloud and provide that 24/7 so that when the second wave hits them, they will be better prepared and improve the business. So I think there are a lot of SMB today don't know where to reach out, right? that's where actually AVM Cloud is actually offering this this advice, right, and help them on board at a very competitive cost. Right? So just that, let's talk about these questions. We have these questions, Wana, asking about how do you compare yourself with the global cloud provider such as the AWS, Azure, or Ali, right? That I will pick out the answer. I think similarly, I'm going to ask you the same question later, right? So for us as a AVM cloud service provider that is local, right? We have all the advantage of that is based in Malaysia, right? And you don't pay in US dollar, and we are able to provide the equal services, or I would just say, 80% of the services that is essential in the cloud and is available, right? Probably today is a good time for us to tell the Malaysian customers what we can actually provide, right? From the typical computings all the way to the managed service on board the SMB customers, no problem, right? So what is the real difference of the Amazons or the Azure, right? Other than they are sitting outside the country, other countries' law will be, it got to be based on. We are basically the same, right? And price, right? So I think Mydin have the same things we're talking about. Malaysian built business, right? Mydin is typical. You want to share that?
Okay. Let me share something with you, Kenny. When you say what AVN Cloud is providing to SMBs and SMEs, I think probably the first thing you guys are providing is simplicity.
Thank you.
Looking at, just sign it into an AWS console and look at the millions of options that you have. I've been fixing computers all my life. I can't figure it out, right? It's literally you have to be fully trained. And a lot of SMEs and SMBs do not have the skill sets in-house. They don't really have an IT guy or a cloud guy, So I think local cloud providers, they can approach through a simplicity by making things easier for SMEs to understand.
Thank you for highlighting this.
No, seriously, this is where I see the difference between working with a local player and some of these global players that confuses the hell out of me, right? So that's, I think, the key thing, right? Yes, they do have more interesting solution, like you say, app layering and whatever not. I think this is something where you as a cloud provider will have to aspire towards, right? But is it that important? Yeah, maybe not right now, right? But you need to get there. So I think that's my key point, simplicity.
Yes. So it will be continued that way. Like we also will be catching up. Today we even have the AI train modules that you can use this as API services. That we have facial recognitions. We have number plates, AI modules that is already in place today for you to consume, right? So these are all the new things that is where we are going to take the cloud to the next stage.
Correct.
So, Malik, you have a question. How do you ensure delivery on time during MCO or peak time?
Okay. One thing about MCO was that, again, we had a sudden spike of orders, right? It's not only system, right? It's also people and process, And to be honest, we were not able to deliver 100% of our orders on time. We actually had a huge amount of backlog. And that, again, is due to multiple factors. Number one, I don't think we were ready for the spike. We didn't have sufficient system and processes in place, to handle the scale that was required of us. And I think was that we also failed in terms of managing our customers' expectation at that point, right? But that happened, it happens one time, but hopefully when it comes again, we are able to manage it better. That's why we're putting in systems and processes in place now, so that when there's another spike of orders, when there's another scale required, we can scale together with our customers, or our orders, basically. Yeah. So yeah, first time, not so good. Hopefully second time, much better. Hopefully.
We have another questions for you as well, I think. I'm a traditional retailer. What are the advices for people like us to move on to e-commerce? Maybe you're the expert in this field.
I wouldn't say I'm the expert, but maybe I've, how do you say, failed sufficiently enough to say, what are the pitfalls, right? Going online, it can be easy or it can be very hard, right? Depending what kind of retail you are. There's a whole lot of process. There's a lot of technology involved, right? But it's not so complicated. I would say if you're a small-time retailer, you have very unique products, merchandise, look at least listing in marketplaces. Use Facebook as your advertising medium. Use Instagram. Use TikTok to advertise yourself, Say, I'm a brand, tell I'm selling this. You need to get the word out there. You need to take good pictures of your product. You need to describe your product, right? So it's an effort. You have to have the effort. You need to have stamina, right? And you need to just do it. Do not be afraid. It's not so difficult. Neither it is very easy, but it's not impossible. Can do one.
Great.
Kenny?
I have a question here. How do I start to use the cloud, right?
Don't.
Well, don't, you will run out of business as well. But I think starting with AVM Cloud, like you say, right? For the SMB customers, it's easy for us to onboard you, right? We have people that is locally skilled, locally be able to access directly to you and help you to onboard, right? That I think is very important for any SMB business who does not even have IT. They don't even know the licenses well, correct? So this is, I think, one of the advantage of being AVM Cloud customers.
And I guess I can go back, tie into my first question with regards to cloud and e-commerce, right, for retailers. Instead of being very complicated, I guess starting it simple is better. And I think this is where I found AVM Cloud to be very simple to deal with, to understand. And I think this is where, for a lot of SMB or SMBs, is a good first step. Go local first. Then you go for the more complicated ones out there, and you know who they are.
So let's sum up on what today we have just discussed about. So we started about your cloud journey with us, and then we also talked about the MCO, right? That how the learning, right, of this, and we also talk about this the second wave, what if come, how our business is more prepared, and so is Mydin's business. How do you get more prepared on that, right? Then we have a few questions that is coming in that how the SME will help them to onboard them, right? But AVM Cloud, just add on to it, right? It's not only the SMB, right? For the enterprise customers, we have been helping, right? People that is already on board, right? We also have the largest this online delivery, right? The customer is on board on us on the day one. Actually, they just ramp out their business in prepare for the MCO. And of course, the hybrid cloud customers that we have today are the large corporates that they would want to be preferred to be safe, that is on premises. But some of the services, they are able to hybrid this to the public cloud, right? So I thank you, Malik.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you once again, Kenny and Malik, for that candid and warm fireside discussion. It was particularly nice to hear Malik's story of how his brick and mortar company was taken, how he pivoted and introduced himself to the world of e-commerce. That was, I think, really, really nice and quite inspiring. But it is not over yet, ladies and gentlemen. Coming up next is a panel discussion. At this panel, we will have 5 guest industry-leading technology and digital leaders who will be sharing their success stories and challenges in their journey of engineering an X factor for their businesses. Our first guest panelist has been in Petronas for 22 years and is currently the head of digital under Petronas downstream business. In his capacity, Shahyang Razali has led the creation of digital and innovation solutions in growing value for the business. Our second guest panelist leads the online marketing campaigns and marketing intelligence teams at Shopee Malaysia. Lok Wen Lam is responsible for conceptualizing and driving strategies to build continuous brand awareness, customer engagement, and customer loyalty across the Shopee platform. Our third guest panelist was named by IDG in November 2019 as one of ASEAN's 50 most innovative technology leaders. As the Group Chief Technology Officer, Kang Yu Jin oversees Star Media Group's overall strategies and initiatives related to technology and focuses on digital transformation across the group. In a previous employment, Yu Jin was the CITO for Hong Leong Bank. Our fourth guest panelist brings more than 25 years of technology industry leadership, business consulting expertise, and executive management experience. Jiva Raju heads the Tata Consultancy Services in Malaysia. Under Jivan's leadership, TCS has increased market share and revenue to become the top 5 consulting companies in Malaysia with close to 1,000 consultants working across Malaysian projects. Jivan pioneered a policy of agile at the workplace, interacting with the project delivery consultants to have a pulse on all implemented projects. Lastly but not least, our panel moderator, Duncan Tan, is a senior research manager with IDC ASEAN, and he has more than 12 years of working experience in the telecommunications and services industry. In his role, Duncan is involved in leading services-driven consulting projects for the sub-region, providing advisory services to leading technology vendors in winning markets, partnership strategies, and technology adoption in ASEAN. This is definitely a power-packed panel. If you're excited, let us know in the comment section below. And before I hand it over to Duncan, just a gentle reminder that if you have any questions for our panel, please also type it in the chat box or in the comment section below if you're on Facebook or on YouTube. All right, so the panel is getting ready. We will be back in just a short while, so please stay tuned.
Hello, good morning everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the CXO 2020 Summit. My name is Duncan Tan. I am a Senior Research Manager at IDC, and I will be your moderator today. And the topic of our panel discussion today is realizing your future enterprise. And I'm joined by these 4 very handsome gentlemen here today, and we will be talking to them and having them share the stories of their success stories on the digital journey and also the challenges that they have faced and embarking this. And they also would like to share how do you engineer the X factor to your businesses moving forward. Before we begin, let me quickly introduce the panel that we have today. So on my far right, we have Shahyang Razali, Head of Downstream Digital at Petronas, Mr. Lok Weng Lam, Marketing Lead at Shopee, Mr. Kang Yu Jin, Group Chief Technology Officer at Star Media Group, and Mr. Jivan Raju, Country Head for Tata Consulting Services. Good morning, gentlemen, and thank you for joining me today.
Morning.
So,
morning.
I want to start by discussing on the overall landscape, right? That how has embarking on the digital journey be successful to your organization and how it has actually helped your organization navigate through this pandemic? And I wanted to start with number 1 from Weng Lam, was that Shopee being a digital native organization themselves and one that runs on digital platform itself, how has it been like for an organization like you to navigate through the digital journey? And also, how has the pandemic impacted you?
Sure, thanks for the question. So I think Shopee as an organization is an organization that, as you said, is digital, right? So we didn't have too much trouble into integrating the digital because that's what we are, right? But I think above and beyond that, I think as we are a digital organization first, we make sure that all of our teams also stay relevant in this space. And just to give you an example, actually when the MCO happened, we actually did our first virtual press conference from our own homes. And that's because actually our live streaming teams and event teams could quickly pivot because they were already in the same mindset. But I think to your question, above and beyond that, Shopee really is an ecosystem of things, right? We are not a company that sits alone. So we do actually have sellers and stuff who are offline, who are part of the ecosystem, who impact the business. And so as part of this, we've actually been working very hard since the MCO happened to really increase the knowledge and learning on that. And we have like things like Shopee Uni and we have all these initiatives to help people get online.
Okay, then I'm going to ask a very obvious question was that, did you see an increase in terms of the online transaction for Shopee during the lockdown and the MCO?
Yes, people have shifted their spend online during that period because that was, they had no choice but to do it, yeah. So we did see an increase, yes.
Okay, thank you for that. My next question would be for two organizations or two businesses that has deeper roots in more conventional, I would say conventional verticals, which is the oil and gas and also the media company, right? So I want to start with Eugene first, was that The Star has came a long way from being a publication company that started in Penang, and even right now, even hosting us today in this virtual event, and also even launching your Dim Sum app, which is a video streaming application, right? Could you share with us what was the digital journey like? What was the end game in mind that Star Media Group had, and what has the impact of the pandemic been for the organization?
Okay, good morning everyone. So that sounded like 2 or 3 different questions. So I will start, so our digital journey started quite early, but I think sometime in 2018, we did a stock take in terms of where we were. So this was way before the pandemic. So when we did a stock take, we realized that we had quite a number of digital assets, right? But we were all over the place. So we had many websites, many apps, but different technologies. We were tracking cookies, right? But we were using different technologies. So we didn't know if somebody went to the Star Online and then that person went over to Kuali.com. We didn't know it was the same person, right? So we did a lot of, I guess, now I can say it, like, it was quite silly then, right? So the first things we got to do was we had to get our basics, right? So we had to unify our technologies. We had to make sure that we had the same tracking technology so that we were able to at least build an ecosystem ourselves. And then secondly, another silly thing we did was some of our digital business comes from serving ads. And then we had like 2 or different ad servers. Can you imagine that? Right? So that also we had to do some housekeeping. We had to make sure that we all go to the same ad. So I think in 2018, that was basically the foundation. We basically need to clean up shop just to make sure that our base is right. Not only from the ability to track customers, so that once we can track customers across our different sites, then we were able to serve them the right information and things like that. But also traditionally, so most of our traditional business was basically the newspaper. So we had journalists who would go out there and write articles, but then they had no choice. They had to come back to the office, upload, or go to Starbucks and And then, so we also have our thestar.com.my, right? And then we realized that person would have to copy and paste articles from one system to another. So that was again another consolidation of technologies, right? So that now I think you can ask our journalists, they can be parking somewhere outside, uploading uploading articles, and that same article can be pushed to Twitter, Facebook. So that was basically what we have done. But in the pandemic, it was a different story. So in the pandemic, we realized that we had to pivot quite fast because some lines of business really had no more business. So we had an events business, we used to run events, so nobody was going to come to our events, right? So they had to very quickly pivot and become digital. So today is one example. Then we had another line of business is our Star Property. So they used to run fairs. We have a Star Education Fair also. So those suddenly also became became digital fairs. So Yeah, so that's what we had to do during the pandemic. So the end game was to ensure that we have an ecosystem that is sustainable, moving forward. That's basically simplistically putting it.
Okay, thank you for the sharing. And with that, I also wanted to tie that back to a lot of the sentiment that we feel that our lifestyle has changed because of the pandemic and all, right? And I wanted to tie this to my question to my next panelist is that one thing that has changed for me is that I'm actually traveling lesser, so that means that I'm using less fuel. So Shah, could you share with us how has this impacted the downstream business for Petronas from an oil and gas perspective? And could you share with us some of the experience of yourself adopting the digital technology for Petronas himself?
Thanks, Duncan. For the downstream business of Petronas, we've adopted digital and innovation a few years ago already. And I think this is in the face of thinning margins brought about by some of the challenges that you mentioned earlier, as well as market disruptions. So we needed to rethink how can we operate our assets safer, more reliable, more efficient. How might we be able to then deliver products through our supply chain in a more optimized cost to serve manner? And how might we be able to elevate the whole customer experience with our marketing entities so that we can retain and grow market share? So when we've deployed a few digital and innovation solutions throughout the years. And when COVID-19 struck, we were quite well positioned to handle that. A few examples that I can mention here is that we, through some of our manufacturing analytics solutions, we were able to remotely monitor and operate our plants with minimal manning at site, reliably, safely, and efficiently. Through some of the other proprietary digital solution that we created with my friend Jivan here with TCS. The project is called DAF. It stands for Drive Optimization of Value Across the Enterprise. Essentially, what it is looking through the oil value chain and find ways for us to deliver the product in a most cost-efficient manner. Through that, we were able to deliver products in a very cost-efficient manner. Settle, I'm not sure whether you have Settle on your phones. We've launched Settle a couple of years back. And Settle capitalize on the whole digital relationships that we have with the customers, providing them seamless and contactless transactions throughout the lockdown period. Lastly, 90% of Petronas staff were, sent home. Those that are not required at site, and I think with the collaborative tools that we already have, ranging from video and collaboration tools to some of the business intelligence, do-it-yourself dashboards, all the way to workshopping tools like Miro, Mural, and all that, we were quite positioned to manage the pandemic.
Thank you, Shah. And yes, I do have Settle on my phone.
Great.
Okay, my next question is for Jivan, right? So the overall tone that we hear from even from the panelists themselves is that tech vendors themselves, right? Like for example, TCS, if I can use the abbreviation, is that they play a very important role in the success of the businesses moving forward, especially in the digital transformations phase and the digital journey. Even in IDC itself, a market research company, we do see that there's a strong tone that organizations are building a lot of resiliency in the recovery phase of this pandemic, right? Could you share with us how a technology vendor like TCS can actually help their clients in this digital transformation journey, and that how was it like supporting your clients during the pandemic, during the lockdown where everyone was apart, there was remote working, and could you share with us your thoughts on that?
Sure, Duncan. Firstly, I think it's a new way of living. I think all of us are experiencing across the world. Likewise, we've got 1,000 customers across the world, and we realized that when the lockdown came about, we literally had to mobilize close to 400,000 people, associate employees of TCS, into a secure, borderless, and workspace environment where they're able to provide support and services to our customers. So we had a massive task of getting what we call SBWS, Secure Borderless Workspace tool, and move that tool to all our employees, which is 450,000 people, and get them to make sure there is continuity of services to our customer. And with that, we wanted to make sure that no matter where you are as our customer, we wanted to make sure that you sure have service continuity. the way you have had it before, you should have the same service continuity. The second thing, we wanted to make sure your data that we have and we are managing is absolutely secure. And the security of data was paramount for us because it's customer data. Number third is the employee well-being, because they're now all working from home, comforts of home. We want to make sure the employee well-being is absolutely well taken care of. So these were the three premises that SPWS came about, and this is where we deployed all the tool to all our associates. And I think with that, we made sure there were no disruption of services to all our banking customers, to all our healthcare customers, to all our telco customers. Even in Malaysia, with all the GLC customers that we have, we are proud to say that we never had any service disruption. And that's the kind of continuity and resilience that we had to bring forth immediately, almost in the span of a week to 10 days.
Okay, thank you. And I remember when the lockdown news came about, most organizations were scrambling about in a matter of short period of time to actually mobilize their workforce. On the next section, I wanted to ask the panelists is in terms of, I understand just now there's a lot of success stories that we have discussed about, but then I wanted to ask, what would the challenges be? And I wanted to pose the first question to Eugene is that, as you mentioned just now, there were multiple ad platform that you had, and that requires some of, can I say, standardization and consolidation of your platforms. Could you share with us how did the pivot happen, and what were the challenges that the Star Media Group actually faced when embarking on the digital journey themselves?
Okay, so our challenges were actually quite basic, right? So the first thing we had to do was we had to make sure that we had the budgets for it. So we had to go to the board and ask for budget, right? Because you can't do things out of nothing. But the good thing is the board actually recognized that we needed to do something to transform. So yeah, so when I first joined the Star, the first couple of months was to make sure that we had the roadmap in place. Then we had to go and ask for budget and things like that. But once we had that all approved, then it was executing. But surprisingly, actually, technology, in my opinion, is really not the biggest challenge. So the biggest challenge is really an organizational change. That I think is, it may be mundane, it may be non-sexy, but it's quite important. So I'll give you an example. So for example, in the Star, the star.com.my used to be free, right? But nowadays I think recently put up a paywall. So we encourage you to subscribe because we have to pay people like Myra, right, to work, right? So if not, our journalists also need to cari makan, right? You can't give everything for free. And now our newspapers is only RM1.80. Actually, the cost is RM4, right? But just to let you know, we are subsidizing quite a lot. So we need to find a new revenue stream. So we decided to test the water with subscribing, right? But the moment we put up the paywall or we encourage you to subscribe, there'll be people who don't want to subscribe. So and then we have to internally change ourselves. Like I mentioned, it's an organization issue. So how do you encourage people to come to the star.com.my and start reading or even pay to read? So you either need to change yourself, write more interesting articles. So now if you notice, if you go to star.com.my, there's a new tab called Star Plus, and we've started to introduce visual articles, right? So those were some things that took a bit of time to convince the business or the content people that, hey, you yourself need to pivot. You can't, it's not everything technology can solve. I mean, I give you all the best technology, but you got to attract somebody to come over to read the stuff. So maybe you got to write better stuff, right? So that was, in my opinion, the biggest challenge. The technology, in my opinion, is really not, because technology is always an enabler.
Okay. Correct. Thank you. Maybe another thing to pivot is from Starbucks to Kopitiam, local Kopitiam, supporting our local businesses. Okay. Then, Shah, I wanted to ask, right? There has been a huge change in the downstream, especially for the oil and gas. Like, for example, issues that you face with aging process facilities, rising cost of energy, as what you mentioned, that the thinning of margins, and that there's a lack of skill for plant operators. Can you share with us how has technology actually helped you there, and what are the challenges that you had when implementing this across, like for example, Petronas' wide area of footprint that you have of the plants, the oil gases that you have. Could you share with us insights on that?
Sure, yeah. And over the past few years that we've done this, there are numerous challenges. Top of my mind, I could probably just rattle off three, the big ones that we significantly learn from. The first is, we have to move away from one-size-fits-all processes. From an energy industry, the typical vocabulary has always been final investment decisions based on certain scope, stage gates, and studies that takes months and execution that take years. We needed to pivot to languages that is more attuned to agile, sprints in weeks, fail fast and pivot even faster, and all that. And what we recognize is that the processes that we had will not fit. So we had to change some of the processes, and a couple of the processes that was of benefit from this transformation was procurement and HR. The second piece is around the whole notion of going into an innovation endeavor without having a certainty, being comfortable to deal with an ambiguous situation. We didn't know what data that we would need. We didn't know whether a particular user experience would be desirable until we go and test it with the customer. So we needed to be comfortable to pivot and move along the way to change the shape and form of the products. The last piece, and I think is equally important, is agile doesn't just apply to methodology or processes. It also applies to people. And in this sense, it's the whole relationship with the service providers, and we like to call them as partners. And truly, the spirit needs to take on a partnership level. Both partners in going through an innovation endeavor need to be flexible, to be able to manage pivot in terms of resourcing requirements, in terms of interventions, and the whole partnership concept doesn't just work at the working level. It needs to transcend to all the way to the highest level of sponsorship between the partner companies. And one case in point, the project DAF that I mentioned earlier, we had very good relationship with TCS. TCS was a committed partner with us, and we moved mountains to achieve the outcome that we desired.
Okay, thank you. Jivan, being an advocate for digital transformation yourself and all, could you share with us what was the common theme of challenges that most organizations face, and how in the digital journey, and how has TCS as a technology partner helped them through this? Could you share with us some of the examples of that?
Sure. I think we suddenly realized that the operating model of companies, traditional companies, need to change. The way you used to make decision needs to change. The processes that you have in line needs to completely change. Because why? Your customer today, the profile of a customer has completely changed. Everybody wanted instantaneous results, instantaneous outcome. And if you want instantaneous outcome, then the whole mechanism and the hierarchy structure that you currently have has to completely change. So we went and we spoke to a lot of our GLC customers and say, hey, we need you to change your operating model. We need you to start thinking faster and get into a flatter organization, such a way that you're able to meet your customers much more quicker. And then we suddenly realized that, okay, fine, they've changed the organization. Like Eugene just mentioned, it's the bigger challenge is not the technology, but it's the organization themselves. And we help many organizations change to become flatter and faster organization. But the second part we realized is, hey, the bigger challenge that we had during COVID is it a 2-week pandemic, or is it a 2-month pandemic, or is it a 2-year pandemic? So the initial hesitation was, what do we do now? Everyone was looking for leadership, and everyone was looking at different countries from leadership. So the first 2 weeks was a bit of a critical. But if you suddenly realize, hey, this is a great opportunity for me right now to change the way of working, and we become the pathfinder, then you've got the secret sauce. And then immediately, like what Eugene just mentioned and Shah just mentioned, it's completely putting the different way of working, and now we start a new way of working on a clean slate where we make outcome-based decision. We start looking at what is it from a customer lens perspective. You put customer as a priority right now, and then you see the difference happening immediately, instantaneously, and you suddenly see the entire ecosystem of within your organization also changes. The decision-making hierarchy also equally changes, because you want a decision almost immediately. So then you start seeing a lot of pivoting happening within the internal organization. And that's the challenge, and that's the secret sauce.
Interesting. And I wanted to leave the last question for Wing Lam, right? Because being a digital native organization as yourself, like for example Shopee, right? It's that people would have the assumption that you will not have the legacy as most other organizations would face. Is that a correct assumption? And could you share with us, if not, what were the challenges that you face from Shopee's point of view that you had to overcome being even a digital native organization as yourself?
Sure. I think for us, the good thing about being a digital organization, a native digital organization, is that we don't have such problems. And I think, as all of the people here have said, right, it really starts from the top. So if the top mandate is as such, then everyone really follows suit. So I think we are blessed from that perspective. But I think going back to the challenges being in this situation, obviously, as a platform like us, we actually have two parties that we actually need to resolve, right? We need to resolve the supply side, we need to resolve the demand side from a technology perspective. So you think from our sellers' perspective, a lot of them traditionally have been offline. And the thing is, how do we bring them online, especially in light of this pandemic? So really, it was us also trying to help the country out. So we reached out to a lot of people and say, hey, you know, here's the platform for you. We have the technology for you. You don't have to invest in the technology. But really, now it's a process of learning how to use the technology within your day-to-day operations. And so that's something that actually we have done, but we've actually really increased efforts over time. So we have this thing called Shopee Uni. So Shopee Uni really is us, I think, so as the name suggests, it's there for us to teach you how to use Shopee and how to teach you how to grow your business in an e-commerce landscape, because we've already have that, right? So that's one of the issues we have to resolve. I think the other part is on the buyer end, right? So it's two sides to the equation. So on the buyer end, really, as the platform grows and all of this, we see that there's an increase in demand, right? So obviously, rightfully said, you know, people want it now. And the minute you cannot fulfill the now, it becomes an issue. So I'll give you an example. Especially with all of the sales that we have leading up to year end, we have 11/11, 12/12, and all coming. 1 hour of sales, probably like in 12/12, we probably sold last year 600,000 items in 1 hour. So that's a very large volume. Now imagine that a transaction cannot happen because of, say, bank maintenance, right? That's a lot of things that don't happen, right? And so really to overcome that and really to resolve this issue, actually Shopee actually has released our own product called Shopee Pay, and that's really there to address that issue, to make sure that the buying experience at least becomes seamless. And we've really rolled that out, and I think we've really gotten good feedback from that. And really, I think for us now, it's how do we take that a bit further to make sure that the buyers also feel like they're part of the ecosystem as well.
Okay, and thank you all for sharing. And I think a common theme we hear across here is that we have to be agile, we have to be nimble, and that we need to be not just reactive to a problem, but be proactive towards it, right? And thank you for your insights. Next up, I want to discuss a bit on the future focus, right? What is the future for your organization? Where do you see yourself in terms of this digital journey? Because as what we discussed even before coming into this panel was that it's a digital journey. It's something that spans not just across the next 6 months, but probably the next few years. And I wanted to start with Shah, was that what are the future focus right now for Petronas? Having already deployed, like what you mentioned, the agility, the methodology, and all. What's your plan moving forward over at least the next 3 to 5 years?
You know, picking up, the few years of experience that we have, obviously the past few years have taught us a lot of change management, like Eugene mentioned, which was substantially a major challenge for us. It is not so much of a challenge for us right now. I mean, for the most part, buy-in is not an issue. Our people have started to see and embrace, the whole innovation and agile approach. They could see the value that some of the spin-off businesses that we have managed to create, for example, Settle and Rover. The question for us now is how do we capitalize this? How we strike, the proverbial iron while it's hot, right? And how can we make this into a sustainable and pervasive culture backed by an engine that will allow for more ideation rooted on strong customer centricity, rooted on bold thinking, rooted on agile, that we can have more sort of like 10x type of ideas that goes through the funnel, that we can spin out new businesses beyond the core that we have today for Petronas. And that's the piece that we are focusing on right now, Duncan.
Okay. And Wing Lam, just now you mentioned that some of the challenges that Shopee is facing is acquiring new buyers, ensuring, combing through them to ensure that they are really ethical sellers and all, right? But so what are the plans for Shopee to actually grow customer acquisition and also convert the traffic to paying customers and also retaining some of these customers? What's the plan moving forward for Shopee on this?
Sure, maybe I'll talk about that in three things that we are doing, right? So on the first part, actually, we are actually working with the government actually to help educate both the buyer and seller side. So actually, we have this thing called the Penjana MSME to help sellers, and also Penjana Shop Malaysia Online, and that's to help buyers, right? And that's really in works with the government to make sure that one, we obviously help the country to help get people back on their feet, right? I think that's very important for us because we also need to give back from that perspective. So that's what we are doing. And the second thing is also as people are coming online, I think one of the big things that we hear from the market is trust, right? How do you engage people to make sure that they still have trust in you in that transaction online? So that's something that we're working very hard on. And actually, just to give an example of that, one of the things actually we've just launched actually is this thing called $1 million brands discount. So a lot of people say, I only want to go offline to buy things because I can see the product, I can feel the product. But what we are doing is actually we're bringing this online, and we are giving the guarantees. And on top of that, as part of the launch, also we are subsidizing the price as well. So that we ensure that people who come online to buy have the surety that one, it's a real product. Number two, that it's cheap, not because it's a fake product, but it's because really we've put in the subsidies in place, right? And I think thirdly, also, as you said, how do we engage more people to come? So actually, as a company, we are moving in the direction, we have all these games, right? So we are very big into shoppertainment. So that's something that we continue to develop as a company, as a technology platform. And more and more of these things will continue to happen for our platform. I can't reveal too much. Obviously, we have 9, 10, 11, 12 coming, so all the doubles are coming up. So stay tuned for more of that. Yeah.
Rest assured, I'm sure many of us on the panelists will be supporting that cause. Okay, then Eugene, I wanted to understand, you've shared a lot in terms of the plans that the Star has gone through in terms of moving a lot of consolidation, a lot of standardization go through. What are the plans for the Star moving forward? And what is the end game in mind that you have for the Star Media Group?
Okay, so the end game is really we want to build an ecosystem for the Star. So if you look at the Star right now, people just think about the Star as the newspaper. But we're more than just the newspaper. We have the physical print paper, we have Star Online, then we have our OTT, the Dim Sum, right? And then we have 2 radio stations, right? We have 98 and then we have Surya. We also have Star Property, we have Car Sifu, we have Kuntum, which is the magazine that you may have read for when you were kids and you need to improve your Bahasa Malaysia, right? And then we have iBilik, and then we have the events. So we actually have quite a number of lines of business. So at the end of the day, what we intend to do is we intend to unify all this into one huge big Star ecosystem. So what I mentioned earlier in terms of standardization of the systems, make sure that we can track the customers and all that is really the starting point. Because ultimately what we want to do is we want to make the experience on the Star as sticky as possible, so that if you're so that if you are reading something on the Star, and then if you go over to, let's say, Dim Sum, or you go over to Kuali, then the experience will be seamless, and then we can push the right things to you, right? So we want you to get stuck into our ecosystem. So that's really what we're trying to do, right? And we're making some small steps to actually do that. So that's really the end goal, right? So ultimately, if it's a customer of the Star, or if it's a reader or a subscriber, we want to know who you are so that we make our ecosystem as friendly as possible. But if you are an advertiser, then we want to ensure to you that because we know our audiences, and during MCO we've hit, I think our star.com.my hit almost 20 million readers, right? Because people had nothing else to do. I think the day we hit the highest, was the day where Muhyiddin announced the second. I think on March the 12th we hit quite high numbers, but then 2 weeks later he announced the extension, right? Then we hit even higher numbers, right? right? So that's really what we want to do, right? To ensure that our ecosystem is as sticky, so we know who you are, and then so we also want to tell our advertisers that because we know our customers or our audiences the best, we ensure that when they go from one platform to another, we track them and we push the right things to them. So that's really what we're trying to do.
Okay, and I would actually give kudos to the staff for having that omni-channel experience, very seamless omni-channel experience across all your platforms that you have. And then on that itself, right, Jivan, how are an organization, a technology like TCS themselves, how are you gearing up to actually support most of the different organizations, seeing that not one size fits all? How is TCS as an organization gearing up for that and supporting our clients?
That's a very good question, Duncan. I think one thing we've realized in this digital world, there are a few tenets that you're going to start seeing very much. First, your customers will want mass personalization. They want to be treated as an individual. So mass personalization is something that's going to come very strong. Number two, they want exponential value. That is something very clearly they're going to call out. They want to really see exponential value. You must be really able to call out what is the value creation. Number four, they want an organization must be able to embrace risk. That means you must be pushing, like Shah says, fail fast, move it, push the risk element a bit more. Number three is number four, you're going to see an ecosystem play, like what Eugene just mentioned. You're going to see a lot of ecosystem play coming up in the next couple of years. And this is how we're helping our customers. Creating ecosystem, creating mass personalization solutions, pushing the envelope in a way we can get them to try something new, something they've never done before. Because digital disruption is all about pathfinders. We all need to be pathfinders in our own respective business. And only then you will find the new ways of living, new ways of doing business, and the new ways that you can add value to your customer. And I think all of us, in some shape or form, are finding ways, how do I add more value to my customer? How do I get much more personalized to my customer? How do I build trust with him, that he continuously keep coming to me again and again and then again and again and doing business? And that will be the new mantra in the new world right now.
Mm-hmm. It's actually good, because this is what you mentioned just now is a very good segue to our next item that I want to talk about, which is on data. Because you mentioned that you want to have the value creation, and one of the new value creation in this digital sphere, it's in terms of data itself. How do you actually turn this data into insights, and how do you actually understand and adapt to the customer's changing demand, right? So first question I wanted to have for Wing Lam from Shopee's point of view is that, what is the plan of Shopee to actually build on the data that you actually gather from your customer? I understand that at times Shopee is already building probably our customers' persona, what are their tendency to buy, because I believe that they already have a lot of that on me right now. But what is the plan moving forward to actually convert a lot of these insights to more, like for example, paying customers that they will want to transact more with Shopee? How do you actually use that data?
Oh, sure. So good question. Actually, we do this on a day-to-day basis. I think the benefit of having the data and being a data-centric organization is that actually it translates in the day-to-day language. So it doesn't matter from what team you are in, you would sort of hear the same languages being used, right? Like, what does the data say? Okay, what is happening now? What's growing? So these are all very common ground things. I think what we do is we have the data teams sit very closely to business. So instead of being a outsource center where we push in a request and a table comes in, it's something that it's a team that actually interacts very closely with the business. And just to give you a few examples, we have a data team that constantly listens to what the trends are, what's upcoming. So even moving from the initial lockdown to our campaigns, actually what was true was, give you an example of 4.4, right? So 4.4 was supposed to be a brands festival initially, but then the lockdown happened in March. And then when that happened, we saw a very big shift in what people wanted. So these were like very basic groceries, these were very basic personal goods, personal care stuff. And so very quickly, within a few days, actually, our whole company had to drop everything and pivot the company based on this information, because the demand has totally shifted. So based on that, then as we did that, we could see that one, obviously, that resounded very well with our customers. Then also we had very good feedback from that, right? And I think also recently there's been a very big durian craze as well, and we caught on to that, right? So actually we had a durian e-fiesta online as well, and I think people started saying, oh, I don't have to go to the offline place to actually get durian, I can actually get it now. So I think these are the things that we are doing to ensure that based on what we see over here, we can react very quickly, right? And then I think by virtue of having the teams look at it, listen to it, and talk about it in a way that resounds correctly, then we can make the right decisions to increase the conversion.
Okay. Eugene, I wanted to ask the question for the Star Media Group, for example, has really a few platforms, for example, Star Online, Dim Sum. These are already digital platforms that captures a lot of your customers' digital footprint, right? Could you share with us how Star Media Group are actually looking to capitalize on some of this data that you see from all these digital platforms itself?
Okay, so it's the answer is a little bit like what I explained earlier. So we capture what you actually read. And because we capture what you read, we know what you like reading. So if you are a person who likes to read about traveling, who likes to read about food, then we have figured out your persona after a while, right? So after a while, then you will realize that the kind of articles that we recommend to you will be certain kind of articles that is to your liking. So that's how we use data to make it sticky for you to be on our site. Right? But at the same time, right, because we are capturing data, we can also go to our advertisers to say, hey, because we know our audiences best. So if you are like somebody who, let's say you are a food and beverage company, right? So we know who your audiences are, so we can push the right ad if you advertise with us to the right person who is quite interested in that kind of product. So that's what we are trying to do. And if that person then moves from the Star Online, he goes to quali.com, right? Then we also know that it's the same person, right? And then we push the right things to that person, whether it's the same advert or even a recipe recommendation. So if that guy has been looking at certain kinds of articles, then we push the right things to the person, even on Quali. And then if that guy goes to Dim Sum, right? We've even got cooking programs, right? So we recommend the same things. So that's generally how data is at the center of our ecosystem.
Yeah, and I can see that a lot of it right now, data is very intertwined to the entire ecosystem. And then I wanted to ask this question to Shah, right? It's that what's the future like looking at for Petronas in terms of the data adoption? Because we understand that, as you rightfully mentioned at the start, that yields are getting thinner, profit is getting thinner. How are you using data to actually help a more rooted vertical like oil and gas to actually grow in terms of that?
So we are a company that has been around for 46 years, pretty long, and obviously we have a lot of data. And just like any other big corporations, data tend to be everywhere, right? And that's a legacy. The way we approach this is, we start from the desired outcome. Jeevan mentioned this earlier as well. So what is the desired outcome? What is then the insights that you require to achieve the desired outcome and value? And then get the right data for it. So thinking about the desired outcome will inherently drive a good data management. Now, I'll take one example quickly, that's very popular, which is Settle right now. So Settle, when we started Settle, we did an extensive customer ethnography. We understood the major pain point for people that go into the stations is actually the time it takes to transact, right? And 80% of Malaysians, prefer to use cash because of the whole pre-authorization hold on credit card and all that. So, but they have to queue. And with queue, there's a lot of time. So nobody wakes up in the morning, hey, my tank is empty. I'm so looking forward to go into a petrol station and fill up. So, when we do that, right, we solve their inherent pain point. It's come, fill, and go. The whole thing opened up to a lot more opportunities for us. We now have loyalty on that Settle. We have now a lot more data in terms of loyalty and spending. We are now tying it to the back end, to the whole payment system, which we're going to get more data. So essentially, we have this digital one-on-one relationship with each segment of the customer. Now, the first example that I mentioned earlier, DAF, which is meant to kind of like compress the cost to serve, optimize cost to serve for the whole value chain. And Petronas is an integrated value chain in Malaysia, and that's our strength. So imagine this, combining DAF and Settle we are able to compress cost to serve. We are able to liberate this value proposition. We now have a relationship with you, Duncan, since you have a settle on your app. We can then segmentize you to the customer of one and pass that value proposition to you. So that's, for us, it starts from an outcome base, getting people to see the value of that outcome, and data and insight will be a supplement to that.
And that ties very strongly to what Jivan you mentioned just now on hyper-personalization for a lot of the customers, right? Then I wanted to take the point of view from a technology partner like TCS themselves. What would be your advice to organization who wants to infuse more data into their organization, moving from a data supplementing decision organization to a data-driven organization? What would your advice be for them?
I think data is I think it's a cliche right now. Data is the new currency. Everybody is looking at data for a lot of insights. Firstly, I think all CEOs of organizations should say it should be a data-driven decision. Whether it's an investment play, whether it's a solution play, or whether it's a behavioral play, it should be a data-driven decision making. So that should come from the CEO level. It's no more an IT job or an IT manager job. It's a CEO decision. All decisions should be data-driven, number one. Number two is, I think, what I call an ABC of digital disruption. Why I say ABC is important. First, A is we need to start looking into action-orientated programs. Outcome-based. Outcome-based will be the key critical. It's no more doing nice thing. What is the outcome we want to achieve? Action-based projects that we need to start thinking about. Number two, B, betterment. What is the betterment for my customer? Whether it's my internal customer or to my customer outside. What is it betterment to Mother Earth? Sustainability. Because a lot of new profile of customers are going to start looking, what does this company stand for? What is this company stand for sustainability? So betterment not only for you, your customer, and also from sustainability angle. C, ABC, the C part is you always put customer first. Look at it from a customer lens perspective. The moment you look at it from customer, like what our friend from Shopee said, if you look at it from customer lens perspective, then all data-driven will basically come along and say, what is the customer? What do I anticipate my customer 3 years from now, 4 years from now, like what Shah said and Eugene said. This is how we should really start pivoting the organization. We can't sit in the fancy boardrooms and say, hey, this is how we believe it's going to be, this is what the trends are going to be. You really need to get into the ABC of digital disruption, and that would be the secret sauce for you to survive.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to all panelists. Now I want to open the floor to a few questions from our live audience that we have. So the first question we have is from Jason. Post-pandemic, do you think that the trend to work remotely or work from home will continue since most facilities has been set up and the investment has been made? So probably I will push this question to Jivan first. Since you are a technology partner for most of them.
I love that question. In TCS, globally, we've made a commitment by 2025. We will only have 25% of our employees come to office and giving 100% productivity. Only 25% of our employees will come to office by 2025. The rest will be working from home and making sure that we give you 100% productivity. And that's a very bold statement that we're taking and a bold move that we're taking. Because this is the new, because we realize, hey, with this pandemic, our productivity is increased from a lot of our teams. Our collaboration has increased with a lot of teams. The outcome, the customer's experience is also far greater than what they used to have meetings. And the physical commute by a lot of for employees moving to offices have also been completely removed. So we believe by 2025, we've taken a bold stand to say only 25% of 450,000 employees that we have today will only go to office.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Question to Shah. Oh, this directly to you. How did Petronas pivot towards an agile culture and process, taking into consideration the massive organization change? Example here, it's flattening the organization structure, information transparency, and faster budgeting decision cycle. And this question is from Eugene.
Thank you. I think it's a very good question, right? And I think throughout the years that we did it, we had to kind of like shift between, if I imagine it like a pendulum. On one side, it's centrally driven, it's top down in terms of vision. We need to be agile, we need to adopt more innovative approach. And on the right side, it's more around, going back to the business, getting them to drive it. And we constantly shift between the two. There are phases that we kind of like need to move to the left where it needs to be driven. There's no choice, we have to do it. And one good example that I would like to mention is, and I'm thinking about that information transparency in that question, is when we went remote working, using collaboration tools, not a problem. But the management consciously shifted from the use of meetings and PowerPoints to present insights and information. So we democratized a business intelligence tool. That's another word for dashboard. DIY dashboard. Power BI. There's a few out there. People have to use this, and when people start to adopt it, they see the value of it. Hey, I don't have to have meetings. The dashboard is always near real time. For as long as I have the database, which I do keep it, people can access and insights can be gathered and decisions can be made. There are times that once the parts of the organization are ready, we have to move towards more to the right, and that's more to get people to drive it in a sustainable manner. There's no other way for the organization to deliver some of this undertaking other than by the people on the ground, by the people in the business, simply because the investment is made in these subsidiaries and the value is realized down there. So ownership at that level is very crucial.
Okay. And I think this ties very strongly to one of the points, Jivan, you mentioned that not just when the remote workforce is there, you have to ensure that it's secure, and information that's passing in and out of even employees' laptop themselves has to be secured, right? Yeah. So our next question, what would you suggest as a starting point for traditional business such as a contractor to transform digitally? And this question is from Patricia. So maybe this ties a bit to Eugene. Maybe you can help answer this, tying a bit to where the start transform, and what should the first steps be for some organization who are just only starting on their digital journey?
Okay, so I think this is a tough question, right? And you can tell I'm stalling because I'm trying to figure out how to answer this. Okay, so I've probably eaten up like 30 seconds already, right? So contractor, okay, so I'm not a contractor, but what I would say is, I'll probably answer this in two ways. If you're specifically if you're a contractor, I think what you need to do is, maybe the easiest way for you to do is to tie yourself up with an online presence outside. For example, recommend.my, or that advertisers services, home services, and you can use them as a starting point. So what that allows you to do is you then don't need to invest so much. You literally use someone. So you find like a third party that can help be an extension of yourself, right? And then you grow with that third party. I'm not just saying recommend that. There's a few out there, right? So you can use that as a starting point to jump off. And then once I think you have gotten enough, because that will give you access to allow people to find who you are, and then once you've built up a good loyal following, then maybe you can internally start developing simple online presence. So that will be my recommendation, right? So rather than quickly building your own website and taking up spending tons of Facebook advertisement and things like that, maybe start small, work with a partner to extend your reach, and then once you build up enough sustainable reach, then you can do your own internal marketing. That's
okay. Probably an idea to Shopee is that probably you can start extending it to services also.
We actually do have it.
Okay. Okay. Next question. How does a company balance the trade-off between harnessing data analytics and safeguarding data governance? And this question is from Alan. And so I wanted to maybe pose this question to Wing Lam, in the sense that Shopee has probably been a platform that has gathering so much data and so much information. How do you actually safeguard this, and how do you balance between probably some parts of data ethics and data trust and data governance in safeguarding the data of your customers?
Sure. I probably won't answer this on the technology front, because obviously there are many technology solutions to this. But I think at the end of the day, in times like this when people need access to data, I think number one is you I think probably in the context of Shopee, where Shopee is probably a younger organization, people who have just come out from college who don't really know the consequence of this. I think one is the education to the team is very important, right? I think number two, I think they need to understand. So what we do in the company is we treat people like adults. So while they're younger, we treat them like adults. So I think we make them understand what the consequences are should this happen, right? And I think when people start to feel the burden of responsibility, I think their mindset changes, right? So I think that is something that we continue to echo in the company. In fact, I think just yesterday I was just talking about this to my team as well. So on one hand, we always like to say that, look, this is the data provided for you to make all those decisions, but please always note that this is something that you don't discuss. This is something that you always keep it within the team, right? And then be professional about it. And I think we see that, it's like children, right? The minute you talk to them a little bit like an adult, they start to behave differently as well. I think that's probably something that a company can do to do that. But obviously, some bigger numbers and more impactful stuff, those are the things that are probably kept at a smaller circle.
Okay, thank you. And as we wrap up our session today, thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, our panelists, for sharing all your insights. And that I hope it has been helpful to our live audience today. And that thank you also to the Star Media Group for actually hosting us today. Take care and stay safe, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hope that you have enjoyed the panel discussion as much as we did. Thank you very much for your questions as well. And thank you to Shopee as a reminder for their shopping doubles. And if you wanted me to have a new wardrobe, please subscribe to The Star. It's less than your Milo Ice in your local mama shop. And, I'll have money in my salary to buy new outfits. I'm joking. But seriously though, I think it was a very, very good way to look at these industry leaders and the way that they have pivoted within their careers and also to learn from them. Remember that at one point, they were also in a position where they needed to innovate, and now they have. So it's really, really cool to hear their perspective. Thank you once again to Duncan, Shah, Weng, Lum, Eugene, and Jeevan for such a great and insightful discussion. It's most definitely a great honor. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying with us until the end. As I've mentioned earlier, we are giving away 4 exciting prizes each day. All you need to do is complete a short survey that will auto pop up as you exit WebEx. Your feedback means a lot to us as we continue in providing a great experience for you at our future events. And we'll be announcing today's winners at tomorrow's program. So, day 2 is a wrap. We have 2 more exciting sessions in the next 2 days. The CXO 2020 program is designed to spark conversations on key areas in driving disruptive innovation in the age of disruption. Tomorrow, we will talk about disruptive marketing in the age of the customer, anchored by our knowledge partner, Kanta. Learn more about maneuvering go-to-market in an area where consumers drive the market. There will also be a special presentation by TNG Digital, followed with a panel discussion where a panel of renowned industry marketers will be sharing their marketing cheat sheet in building customer trust in their brand. We all love cheat sheets. Are you excited at tomorrow's program as much as I am? If you are, please do go to the comment section below and let us know what you thought about today's session and what your hopes are for tomorrow's session. To learn more about our conference program of the CXO 2020 and also the profile of our speakers, or if you have not yet signed up for tomorrow's session and the final session on Friday, you may scan the QR code that is on your screen or visit bit.ly/starcxo2020, that's bit.ly/starcxo2020, or email us at events@thestar.com.my. Please also share this with your colleagues and friends. I'm signing out, but this page will remain live for the next 10 to 15 minutes. Remember to complete the short survey as you exit WebEx and stand a chance to win one of the 4 exciting prizes. Thank you and see you again tomorrow morning at 10. Bye.
Welcome to vibrant Malaysia. Strategically located in the heart of Asia with links to all parts of the world. Headed by a constitutional monarch. Governed by parliamentary democracy, where general elections are held every 5 years. The country enjoys decades of stability with the benefits of a broad-based economy powered by the private sector and a pro-business government. It's always summer in Malaysia, a country blessed with abundant natural resources and more. While rapidly developing, we continue to preserve our land, environment, heritage and values. They are all here in Malaysia, a country of many colors, races and cultures. Selamat datang. Welcome to Malaysia. Malaysia has transformed from a country dependent on agriculture and primary commodities to an export-driven economy, spurred by high technology, knowledge-based and capital-intensive industries toward a high-income nation. Many international corporations have made Malaysia their highly competitive offshore base. To date, more than 5,000 international companies from over 80 countries have established their regional and global operations in Malaysia. Companies in the manufacturing and services sectors continue to expand and diversify their operations. The combination of a stable political environment and a government that is responsive to private sector needs and supports and facilitates business. Malaysia's developed infrastructure has provided the requisite competitiveness to the business community. The Kuala Lumpur International Airports provide excellent facilities. The airports can accommodate up to 70 million passengers. And more than 12 million tons of cargo per year. In addition, 6 other international airports are strategically located to serve the regional needs. And the 7 major ports ensure the efficient movement of cargo as well as facilitate international trade. The improved rail system and the network of expressways ensure easy access to and from airports, seaports and urban centers. The government ensures that energy needs are adequately met, while broadcasting and telecommunications requirements are being served by the latest digital and fiber optics technology. For banking and financial services, local and foreign banks offer comprehensive and competitive packages. $11 million trainable and educated Malaysians support industry and trade, and annually about 250,000 young Malaysians enter the workforce. Universities, technical and vocational institutions ensure the continuous supply of manpower needs. Malaysia's geographical location makes the country a strategic base for exports to the Asia-Pacific markets. Malaysia provides access to not only the ASEAN market, with a population of 600 million, but to a market of more than 3 billion people created by the various trading arrangements with the world's most vibrant nations. Living in Malaysia. But doing business in Malaysia is not all work. The country offers good living in the midst of a clean and green environment. Modern housing, international schools, healthcare of international standards. Add to that the warmth and hospitality of Malaysians. Things to do during leisure. Great food everywhere. Fun places to be. Make Malaysia a home away from home. Selamat datang. Welcome to Malaysia, your profit center in Asia.
Some people are calling this the new normal, but there's nothing normal about it. As the world's businesses begin to reopen, the question is, what can we learn from this? Perhaps today isn't a restart, it's a rethink. A time to take the things that are working and apply them to the new jobs that need to get done. Today, businesses are staying open in a world that feels closed. With the IBM Cloud, retailers can keep systems up as millions of orders move online. Data is being protected against new security risks. So at leading hospitals, private information can stay private, even while doctors are caring for patients from home. Businesses are being more responsive. With the help of scalable solutions on the IBM Cloud, financial advisors can process bank transfers remotely, securely. Today, supply chains are getting more intelligent, helping ship our produce, stock our stores, and fill our tables. Remote work is working smarter with IBM Watson, helping employees stay more productive and making parents even more proud. Customers are getting answers faster. With Watson Assistant, wait times are being cut from hours down to minutes, and companies are managing millions of calls, texts, and chats. Today, we are speeding our research and our recovery with help from all the developers who are answering the call. Today, we are rethinking how business moves forward, how the world moves forward. So let's get to it. Let's put smart to work.
Stemming from our founding pillars in India back in 1868, TCS has been unrelenting in improving the lives of communities through value creation. 66% of the Tata Group equity share capital is held in philanthropic trusts towards education, health, and livelihood. Since then, our insignia for sustainability has been ingrained across all the work we've accomplished. Adopting a sustainable digital-first strategy to propel Malaysia towards IR 4.0. By setting the stage through TCS thought-leading vision, Business 4.0, we've enabled clients to harness the abundance and navigate through the paradigm shift brought by digital disruptions. The intent is to discard traditional thought patterns and drive performance through an intelligent, agile, automated, and cloud-based pathway. We help businesses thrive in the wave of disruption with superior business outcomes.
certainty for where it's most vital. That's the promise of EcoStruxure Microdata Center from Schneider Electric, the support you need when there's no room for downtime.